Catus, Maximus here. This time with a little review of the Sunex 9723. I do mention that Sunex has a very good warranty. It's not just like a lifetime warranty so many tool manufacturers have, except for it seems Titan Tools, which I'm learning more and more about their terrible warranty and mention it all the time. Sunex tools, if you have a socket break or something like that, you don't have to spend a bunch of money and time shipping your tool to them, which is just the way manufacturers use to really not have to cover warranties, because so few people actually want to go through that hassle and expense. Sunex, if you have something like a socket split, you send them a photo of it and they'll just replace the socket without hassle. Comes in this weird little case. This thing was 22 bucks, so I think it's actually one of the better deals on Sunex tools. Sunex tools are reasonably priced, but for 22 bucks, this thing is actually a really good price. It comes with this little size reference chart. It is a spline, but it's, you know, kind of sold as just a little general set. I got it because of the mini flex head ratchet. And that ratchet was worth 22 bucks alone. The clasp is on upside down the box. What I mean is you want the lever on the lid, otherwise you have this weird issue where the box ends up sitting on the actual clasp. So they probably should fix that and not have the clasp be reversed. It's a true 13-piece set. They're not counting the case as one of the pieces that so many manufacturers do. We have 11 sockets, a ratchet, and then for some reason they include a 1/4-inch hex to 1/4-inch square, a little drive adapter. This is odd for the set, and they shouldn't even include it. It's just like some weird piece, a random piece they decided to throw in there. Here are the sockets. They did, surprisingly enough, do little laser burns in the foam. I think that's kind of neat. The sockets themselves, pretty standard, but they are not advertising these as universal spline drive. These are advertising these as being metric. They only have a metric number on them. I do have these deep well, and that's part of the reason I got this, is so I could have short wells, splines, to go along with this Power Torque deep wells. But you can see, like on the Power Torque, they do 10mm/3/8. And that's really a no-go. Something, you know, on a 10mm, they fit nice and tight. But on a 3/8, it just barely catches, barely drives it. So technically, Sunex could have advertised these as being dual drive like the Power Torques, which are the same thing. Fortunately, they're actually not trying to quote-unquote stretch the truth too much, and I do appreciate that. They are roll stamped, chrome vanadium, nothing else too special. To tell you the truth, the chrome on the Power Torques looks a little bit deeper, a little bit more lustrous. I think the Power Torques may actually be just a slightly better quality. Seem to be the exact same diameter. That's the only thing I could really compare these to. Power Torque sockets from O'Reilly's are much better than AutoZone's tools. Of course, everybody's tired of hearing about that. This little ratchet's the thing that I'm after. This thing is super short. There's my index finger, and if we get that lined up, tip to tip, it's just slightly longer than my index finger. This is truly a tiny ratchet. I have a Tecton 1/4-inch stubby. It is only slightly shorter, but you can see the head size is way smaller. I suspect this head is not quite as strong as, say, maybe the Tecton, but it's still pretty good. As far as the Power Torque, and this is also sold by a bicycle tool company, Toe Peak, this super micro ratchet. Surprisingly enough, the Sunex is even pretty competitive with the head size on the super micro ratchet. And with that little anvil in the micro ratchet, it's actually a bit shorter, although it does have the button. If we match the button height, it is still shorter. So even compared to this Toe Peak, this is going to be a lot stronger than the mechanism in this, and actually that's pretty surprising. This is a competitively small ratchet. They did just laser etch this, so this ratchet's probably made, is made by somebody else, and then Sunex bought a bunch and rebranded them, but saw that they had value. I kind of like this platypus tail handle. It's actually pretty comfortable in a variety of positions. It does have a nice little arc to it. Kind of like those Titan super compact ratchets. I've already counted this. It's a 72 tooth design. Nice little reverse lever. Not too bad. Decent stiffness in the hinge, so it'll hold in place. I like it. It is quick release. Some people will like the quick release. I'm not super fond of it, but it seems to it's just fine in a little ratchet like this. You're not going to be putting so much torque that you're worrying about shearing the anvil. And it does hold pretty well, and does hold the sockets nice and tight to the head, so you're getting every bit of that compact nature. It's kind of interesting that they wouldn't include, say, stubby sockets along with this. And mentioning that, these are standard height sockets. A stubby 10mm socket would be something like this. So these are just standard height. These little stubby sockets also happen to be Power Torques. Anyway, I like this little ratchet. You get a stubby socket on there, and you got one compact little unit. I was also thinking, this thing is rebuildable. I should mention that. It has a snap ring, and then there's a screw that appears to help secure or hold in the reverse lever. That screw also helps block the tangs of the snap ring from compressing inwards, helping it keep it secure. So you actually have to remove the screw before you can push the snap ring in. So anyway, let me knock this ratchet apart, and let's take a quick look inside. Got this little guy apart. Really, that's one heck of a custom snap ring. Reasonably thick bottom plate. Traditional floating pawl design, as we can see here. And then you just rotate the reverse lever. Just shifts the pawl to the other side. Not in. This is the way most fine-tooth pair head ratchets are built these days by any manufacturer. What I will say is I really appreciate one thing here is on these styles of ratchets, what can happen is you can just see the glint. There's a little pin that's inside here that's pressing up against the pawl. And many ratchets, including like the Icon flex heads, the stop for the switch is actually that little spring-loaded plunger itself, which is a bad idea because it gets beat up, makes the ratchet want to slip. If you're using it in such a situation where you have tension on the reverse lever, it can make it to where it won't ratchet or makes it freewheel. Really pretty lame. You can see Sunex has actually inserted another little steel pin. It was easier for them, the machine, just to run an end mill to plunge out these two circular shapes and then drill a hole and put in a steel pin than it was to try to mill out a little hump. And I think that's interesting. That's just design manufacturing efficiency. But you can see the bottom of the switch hits that and is a stop, so it doesn't put tension on the plunger. That's actually a very small little change, which makes a big difference and should actually make this ratchet a bit more reliable, and I'm actually quite happy to see that. I also like the fact that they do have an extra screw in the bottom of the switch to really help secure it. This plunger and the way it extends out helps keep this switch secured, but having the screw just adds a little bit of extra security. So overall, it's actually not a bad little design, except for the fact that there is no oil in there. I don't know what's going on in manufacturers and refusing to oil tools these days, but I'm just going to put a little bit of light oil. Or if you put too much oil in, don't worry, any excess will leak out. So anyway, that's my overly wordy review of this little Sunex Super Micro, or I should say mini flex head ratchet. And as far as mini flex head 1/4 inch ratchets are concerned, this one's pretty good. I mean, it ticks a lot of the boxes. All the Sunex really is doing pretty well. Even the quick release has a nice protrusion. It does pull in just a little bit. Some quick releases, you can see that, where if you press on the ball, it will pull in the lever, but it stops at about a midpoint. So overall, I'm even satisfied with that. So this really isn't such a bad little kit. I think they could have included a couple larger socket sizes. Maybe instead of stopping at 12, they could have went with up to 14mm just to make the set just a little bit more complete. And they could have charged, $25 or something for it, and I think people would have still been plenty happy. This thing's really oily. I don't know why that is. Anyway, pretty cool. I'm pretty stoked about this little ratchet, and glad found one from Sunex, and glad that they're charging a reasonable price. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody who's been watching and subscribing, and if you haven't subscribed, please do. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.